The girl stood on the auction block not for marriage but for sale. 19 years old, hollow-eyed, and labeled barren like spoiled livestock. Her own mother took the money without looking back. But when the weathered rancher stepped forward, something in his eyes made her heart stutter. Not pity, not lust, something she'd never seen before: recognition. What he saw in her broken body would shatter everything she believed about herself, and what happened 9 months later would prove the doctors dead wrong. Before we begin, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Stay until the very end. This story will break you and rebuild you. Comment what city you're watching from, so I can see how far Mave's story travels. Now let's begin. Mave's mother counted the coins twice. $40. Each clink against the table sounded like a nail in a coffin. "That's the price," Temperance Lark said. She didn't look at her daughter. Hadn't looked at her properly in 3 years, not since the fever left Mave thin and shaking, and according to Doc Pritchard, ruined inside. "She cooks adequate, cleans better, won't give you children, but she's healed enough for other wifely duties." The words tasted like ash in Mave's mouth. The man in the doorway was tall, sun-worn with dust on his boots that spoke of long miles. Silas Danner, the widower from Red Mesa who'd buried his wife 2 winters back. "I'm not here for wifely duties," Silas said. Temperance's spine went rigid. "Then what?" "I need help at my ranch. Someone who can work. That's all." His eyes shifted to Mave. Not hungry, not cruel, just tired. "Miss Lark, can you cook?" Mave's voice came out rusty. "Yes, sir." "Handle chickens? A garden?" "Yes, sir." "Can you read?" The question caught her off guard. Some." Her mother made a sharp sound. "Reading won't fix what's broken in her. The fever saw to that Barren as a salt flat. But she's strong enough for labor. Complaining got beaten out of her years ago." Mave flinched. The truth of it burned. Silas's jaw tightened. He looked at Temperance with something cold moving behind his expression. "Ma'am, I don't beat my animals, and I sure as hell don't beat people. If that's what you think I'm paying for, keep your money." He turned toward the door. "Wait." Temperance lunged forward. "Mr. Danner, please. The girl eats too much for what little she's worth. She's taking up space. You'd be doing us both a kindness." "Us both. Not her, not my daughter, just the girl." Something inside Mave went still and cold. She'd known her mother blamed her for being born sickly for surviving when her twin brother died, for the fever that cost them everything, for becoming living proof the Lark bloodline would end with her. But hearing it said so plainly made something crack in Mave's chest. A crack that let light in. Silas stood in the doorway, sunlight behind him. He studied Mave. "Miss Lark." He was talking to her, not her mother. "I'm offering room and board, separate quarters, fair work for fair treatment. Red Mesa's isolated 5 hours to the nearest town. Hard country, but it's honest work and I'm an honest man." He paused. "And if you say no, I'll leave right now. Your choice." Choice. When had she ever had that? "She'll go," Temperance snapped. "Of course she'll." "I'm asking her," Silas interrupted, steel in his voice now. "Not you." The silence stretched thin and dangerous. Mave looked at her mother's rigid back, at the tremor in her hands that spoke of desperation. Then she looked at Silas Danner and his patient eyes. "I'll go," Mave whispered. Her mother's shoulders sagged with relief. Silas counted out $40, placed them on the table like a death sentence. "Pack what's yours. We leave in an hour." Mave owned almost nothing. One change of clothes, a hairbrush with missing teeth, her mother's Bible that hadn't been opened in years, a tin cup, 19 years of life fit into a flour sack with room to spare. She stood in the bedroom she'd shared with her mother, staring at the threadbare quilt, the single window that looked out on the wheat field that never grew quite right. "Don't expect me to mourn you," Temperance said from the doorway. Mave didn't turn. I won't. That fever should have killed you. Would have been kinder. Yes, ma'am. You'll disappoint him too. You disappoint everyone. Maeve's hands stilled on the flour sack. For just a moment, she let herself feel the full weight of her mother's hatred pressing down. Then she straightened and turned. Maybe, Mave said quietly, but I won't have to disappoint you anymore. Something flickered in her mother's eyes. Shock. Or the ghost of grief. It died as quickly as it came. Get out of my house, Temperance whispered. Mave walked past her without another word. The wagon lurched forward. Temperance stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them leave. She didn't wave, didn't cry, just stood there like a gravestone. Mave kept her eyes forward, hands folded in her lap, flour sack at her feet. She waited for tears that didn't come. Maybe she'd cried them all out during the fever, during the long nights when Doc Pritchard said her insides were scarred, ruined, that she'd never carry life. Maybe there was nothing left to grieve. They rode in silence. The Kansas plains stretched endless wheat and dust and sky so big it made her dizzy. Sweat gathered between her shoulder blades. The sun climbed higher, hotter. Her stomach growled. You hungry? Silas asked. Mave startled. No, sir. Don't lie. I heard that 10 minutes ago. He reached behind the seat and pulled out a cloth bundle. Cornbread. Mrs. Kowalski insisted. He held it out. Mave stared at it. It's not poisoned, Silas said, almost smiling. Go on. The bread was still warm. Butter and honey and salt, things her mother said were too expensive to waste on a barren girl. Mave bit into it and nearly wept. She forced herself to chew slowly, to not devour it like an animal. Her hands shook. The crumbs fell like snow. Silas watched her. When's the last time you ate proper? I eat. That's not what I asked. She swallowed hard. 2 days. Cornmeal mush. His jaw tightened. He didn't say anything, just handed her a canteen. The water tasted of minerals and distance and something she'd almost forgotten. Kindness. Thank you, Mave whispered. You'll eat 3 meals a day at Red Mesa. That's not charity, that's sense. Can't work if you're starving. He paused. And you don't have to call me sir. Silas is fine. Mave nodded but couldn't bring herself to say his name. Not yet. Names were intimate things. They stopped at noon near a creek that cut silver through the prairie. Stretch your legs, Silas said. We've got 4 more hours. Mave walked to the water's edge. Knelt, splashed her face. The cold shocked her awake. She drank from cupped hands, then sat back watching the current move stones smooth as prayer. Silas crouched beside her, not touching. Close enough she could feel his warmth. Your mother, he said carefully. She always that cruel? Maeve's throat closed. Not always. Before the fever. Before my father died. Before she realized I was... She couldn't say it. Realized you were what? A disappointment. Silas picked up a smooth stone, turned it over. My Sarah died bringing our son into the world. He lived 3 days. His voice scraped like sandpaper. I blamed myself, blamed God, blamed the midwife, blamed everyone except the truth that sometimes life just breaks and there's no one to punish for it. He threw the stone. It skipped 3 times before sinking. Your mother's trying to punish you for something that's not your fault. That's the cruelest kind of evil, the kind that makes you believe you deserve it. Maeve's eyes burned. The fever left me barren. Doc Pritchard said so. That makes me less. Doesn't it? Less what? Less a woman. Less useful. Less worth keeping alive. Silas looked at her. Really looked. I'll tell you what I think. A person's worth has nothing to do with whether they can make babies. My Sarah was worth the world, and she died trying. You're worth something because you survived. Because you're sitting here breathing still, hoping even after your own mother tried to kill that hope. His voice went soft. That takes more strength than most people ever find. Mave wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But 3 years of venom had soaked too deep. "I'll try not to disappoint you," she whispered. "You can't," Silas said. "I don't expect anything except honest work and decent company. Everything else is just extra." Something fluttered in Mave's chest. Small, fragile. Hope, maybe. Or the memory of what hope used to feel like. Red Mesa appeared at sundown. A ranch house, a barn, a chicken coop, a windmill spinning lazy circles against the sky. It sat in a valley between two red rock mesas that glowed like embers. The land was harsher here, less wheat, more scrub. But there was water. She could see the irrigation ditches, the green garden, the fat chickens. "It's not much," Silas said, pulling the wagon to a stop. "But it's paid for. It's mine." He glanced at her. "Yours too now." A black and white dog bounded up, tail wagging. Mave flinched. "That's just Dog," Silas said. "Never gave him a proper name. He won't bite unless you're a coyote." The dog sniffed her skirt, decided she was acceptable, trotted back to Silas. "Your quarters are in back," Silas said, leading her inside. "Separate entrance. I sleep in the main room. There's a lock on your door inside and out. You control it." He opened the door. The room was small, but clean. A bed with a real quilt. A washstand. A chair. A window with curtains. More than she'd had in 3 years. "I'll bring your bag," Silas said. "We'll eat in an hour. Stew's already cooking." He paused. "Mave." She turned. "Welcome home," he said. Then he left her alone. Mave stood in the center of the room. She listened to the wind rattle the window, to the chickens settling to Silas's boots on the porch. Slowly, she sat on the bed. The mattress was soft. She put her face in her hands. And for the first time in 3 years, Mave Lark let herself believe she might survive. Dinner was venison stew, thick with potatoes and carrots and meat that fell apart at the touch of a spoon. Silas set it in front of her with bread, butter, and milk still warm from the cow. "Eat," he said. "All of it." Mave ate. She tried to pace herself. The first bite burned her tongue. She didn't care. The meat was rich, salt-sweet. Her stomach cramped. Too much, too fast. But she couldn't stop. 3 years of cornmeal and shame dissolved in the warmth of real food. She scraped the bowl clean, ate every crumb, drained the milk. When she looked up, Silas was watching. "Better?" he asked. "Yes." She caught herself. "Thank you." "Good." He stood. "Morning comes early. Chickens at dawn. Garden after breakfast. I'll show you everything tomorrow. Tonight rest. You look like you haven't slept in months." "I haven't." He nodded. "Your door locks from the inside. Use it if you need to." Mave stood. "Silas." He turned. "Why did you really buy me?" The question burst out. "You don't need a wife. You said that. So why?" Silas was quiet. Firelight played across his face. "Because I've been where you are. Not exactly, but close. After Sarah died, I wanted to die too. Stayed alone out here for months. Barely eating, not talking. Then Mrs. Kowalski showed up with food and told me I was being a damn fool. Said grieving was allowed, but rotting wasn't." He smiled faintly. She was right. Sometimes people need someone to remind them they're still alive, that they still matter. His eyes met hers. "You matter, Mave. I don't know you yet, but I know that. I figured maybe we could both use the company of someone who understands what it's like to be written off as already dead." Mave's throat closed. "I don't know how to do this. How to be treated like I'm worth something." "Then we'll figure it out together," Silas said. one day at a time. That night, Mave lay in her small room with the door locked and the quilt pulled to her chin. She listened to the wind sing across the desert. She waited for fear, for the old certainty that kindness was just cruelty waiting to show its teeth. But exhaustion pulled her under first. She dreamed of water and wheat fields and a voice that said, "You matter." When she woke, dawn was bleeding pink through the curtains. The smell of coffee drifted through the door. She heard Silas humming something low and familiar in the kitchen. She touched her stomach hollow, empty, scarred, and felt something. Just once. Impossible. A flutter. Like a butterfly trapped under her ribs. She held her breath. It came again. Maeve's hand pressed flat against her abdomen. Her heart hammered. Doc Pritchard's voice echoed in her head. "You'll never carry life." The fever saw to that, but her body whispered something different, something that felt like a promise, or a miracle she was too afraid to believe. She lay there as the sun climbed higher, one hand on her stomach, listening to Silas hum, and just dog bark, and the chickens cluck their morning song. And for the first time since the fever tried to kill her, Maeve wondered if surviving was only the beginning. If maybe, just maybe, the real miracle hadn't even started yet. The chickens scattered when Maeve opened the coop door. She stood frozen, holding the feed bucket, watching them flap and squawk like she'd come to murder them instead of feed them. Her hands trembled. Everything here was new. The smells, the sounds, the way the morning light turned the Red Mesas into something that looked like God's fingerprints. "They're just chickens," Silas said behind her. Maeve jumped. Grain spilled across the dirt. "Sorry." He bent to help her scoop it back. "Didn't mean to startle you. They'll settle once they know you're not a fox." "I've fed chickens before," Maeve said quickly, too quickly, defensive. "I know." Silas straightened, dusting his hands. "But these are meaner than most. That one there." He pointed to a fat red hen. "That's Lucifer. She'll peck you if you turn your back. And the rooster thinks he's king of the world." As if on cue, the rooster crowed. Loud and arrogant. Maeve almost smiled. Almost. "Scatter it like this." Silas took a handful of grain and threw it wide. The chickens rushed forward, pecking frantically. "See, they'll forget you exist once they're eating." Maeve copied him. The chickens swarmed her feet. One pecked her boot. She flinched, but held steady. "Good," Silas said. "You'll do fine." He left her there with the chickens and the rising sun and the strange flutter in her belly that had woken her before dawn. She pressed her hand against her stomach again. Waited. Nothing. Maybe she'd imagined it. Maybe hunger and exhaustion had made her feel things that weren't real. But it had felt real. It had felt like life. She shook her head and finished feeding the chickens. Lucifer pecked her ankle on the way out. Maeve didn't even care. Inside, Silas had breakfast waiting. Eggs fried in butter. Bacon that crackled. Toast with jam. Coffee so strong it smelled like dirt and redemption. "Sit," he said. Maeve sat. She stared at the plate like it might vanish if she blinked. "You gonna eat or just look at it?" Silas asked. She picked up her fork. The eggs were perfect yolks, still runny edges crisp. She ate slowly this time, savoring it, trying not to think about how her mother used to make her eat standing up after everyone else had finished, only whatever was left. "What do you need me to do today?" Maeve asked between bites. "Garden needs weeding. I'll show you which plants are which so you don't pull up the vegetables." Silas poured her more coffee without asking. "After that there's mending. And if you're up for it, bread." Maeve nodded. "I can do that. I know you can." The confidence in his voice startled her, like he'd already decided she was capable and didn't need proof. Like her worth wasn't something she had to earn every single day. She didn't know what to do with that. They worked through the morning. Silas showed her the garden, the tomatoes heavy on the vine, the squash spreading like green hands across the dirt, the herbs that smelled like medicine and memory. He didn't hover, didn't watch her like she was about to fail, just pointed things out and left her to it. Mave knelt in the dirt, pulling weeds, letting the sun bake her shoulders. The earth was warm under her fingers, alive. She found herself humming something her father used to sing before he died, a church hymn about valleys and shadows and fear. She stopped when she realized what she was doing. Humming meant hoping, and hope was dangerous. By noon, her back ached, her hands were filthy. Sweat dripped down her spine. But the garden looked clean, organized, like something worth tending. "You're faster than I expected," Silas said, appearing with water and a cloth. "Take a break." Mave drank. The water was cold. He must have pulled it fresh from the well. She wiped her face and hands, leaving dirt streaks on the cloth. "I used to help my father," she said. "Before he died, he had a garden twice this size. He'd teach you everything he could." Mave looked at the rows of vegetables. "My mother let it die after he was gone, said it was too much work for no reward." "Your mother's a fool," Silas said flatly. Mave's head snapped up. "I don't care if that's harsh," Silas continued. "Woman who'd sell her own daughter and call her worthless is a fool, and I'll say it to her face if she ever shows up here." Something hot and sharp lodged in Mave's throat. "You don't know her whole story." "Don't need to. I know enough." Silas crouched beside her. "You keep defending her. Why?" "Because she's my mother." "That's not a good enough reason." Mave's hands twisted the cloth. "She wasn't always like this. The fever, it didn't just hurt me. It cost us everything. The doctor bills, the medicine. My father worked himself to death trying to pay for it, and when he died, she blamed me. Maybe she's right too. She's right. Why?" "Stop," Silas said. "Hard. Right now. Stop." Mave flinched. Silas's voice gentled. "You didn't kill your father. Pneumonia did. And your mother choosing to blame you instead of bad luck or God or just the way life breaks sometimes, that's on her, not you." He stood. "You want to forgive her someday, that's your choice. But don't you dare carry her guilt like it's yours." Mave stared at the dirt, at her filthy hands, at the garden she'd made clean. "I don't know how to not carry it," she whispered. "Then we'll figure that out too." Silas offered his hand. "Come on, let's get you fed." Mave took his hand. Let him pull her up. His palm was rough and warm and steady. She wondered if this was what safety felt like. Lunch was leftover stew and fresh bread Silas had baked that morning. It wasn't perfect. The crust was too dark on one side, but it was warm and filling and tasted like effort. "I'll teach you my recipe," Silas said, watching her eat. "Sarah used to say my bread could resurrect the dead." "Was she a good cook?" "Terrible." Silas laughed, soft and sad. "Burned everything. I did most of the cooking. She did the livestock, had a way with animals I've never seen. Cows loved her. Horses, too. Even the damn chickens behaved." His smile faded. "She would have liked you." Mave's chest tightened. "You don't know that." "I do. Sarah had a soft spot for fighters. People who survive things they shouldn't have." He looked at Mave. "You're a fighter." "I don't feel like one." "Fighters never do. That's what makes them fighters." After lunch, Silas set her up at the kitchen table with a basket of mending. Shirts with torn seams, socks with holes, a pair of pants that needed patching. "Take your time," he said. "I'm going to check the irrigation ditches. Be back before supper." Mave threaded the needle. Her mother had taught her to sew before everything went bad. Tiny, precise stitches that made cloth stronger than it had been before. Her hands remembered even when her heart didn't want to. She worked through the afternoon, listening to the clock tick and Just Dog's snore on the porch and the wind whisper through the windows. The silence wasn't empty here. It was full of small living things, the creak of wood settling, the rustle of curtains, the distant bleat of a goat she hadn't met yet. It was the kind of silence that didn't demand anything from her. She finished the mending as the sun started to sink. Her fingers ached, her eyes burned, but the basket was empty, and everything in it was whole again. Silas came back dusty and tired, smelling like earth and sweat. "You get it all?" he asked, nodding at the basket. "Yes." "Good. I'll start supper. You rest." "I can help?" "You've been working since dawn. Rest." Mave didn't know how to rest, didn't know how to sit still without guilt crawling up her spine. But Silas was already pulling out a pot humming again, and she was too tired to argue. She sat on the porch steps with Just Dog. The dog rested his head on her knee-tail, thumping lazy rhythms against the wood. She scratched behind his ears. He groaned like she'd given him the greatest gift in the world. The sky turned pink, then orange, then purple. The mesas glowed like they were on fire. Mave touched her stomach again. That flutter. Gone now. Maybe it had never been there. Maybe she was inventing hope because she didn't know how to live without it. "Supper's ready," Silas called. They ate on the porch fried potatoes and onions, bacon canned peaches that tasted like summer. Mave ate slower this time. Let herself taste things. Enjoy them. "You did good today," Silas said. "I just did what you asked." "That's doing good." He leaned back in his chair. "Tomorrow we'll tackle the wash. Day after that I'll teach you to make bread. Then maybe you can ride out with me to check the cattle." "You have cattle?" 20 head. Not many, but enough. They're out in the far pasture. I check them every few days." He glanced at her. "You ever ridden a horse?" "Once, when I was little." "I'll teach you again. It's easier than walking 5 miles in the heat." Mave nodded. She watched the stars come out one by one, punching holes in the sky. More stars than she'd ever seen. Out here, away from towns and lamps and people, the sky was so full of light it almost hurt. "My father used to say the stars were God's way of reminding us we're not alone," Mave said quietly. "Smart man." "He was." Her throat tightened. "He used to tell me I was worth more than rubies, that God made me special, that the fever couldn't take that away." He was right. My mother said he was a fool for believing it. Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Your mother's wrong about a lot of things. Your father wasn't one of them." Mave felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. "I miss him." "I know. Do you miss Sarah?" "Every day." Silas's voice went rough. "But missing someone doesn't mean you stop living. It just means you carry them with you while you do." They sat in silence, listening to the crickets sing and the wind move through the grass. Just Dog snored between them. The world felt small and safe and impossibly fragile. "Silas," Mave said. "Yeah. Thank you." "For what?" "For not treating me like I'm broken." He looked at her. Really looked. "You're not broken, Mave. You're just healing. There's a difference." That night, Mave lay in her bed and let herself cry. Not from sadness, not from fear, but from something she didn't have a name for. Relief, maybe, or the beginning of something that might turn into joy if she was brave enough to let it. She touched her stomach one more time, whispered into the dark, "If you're real, hold on. Please hold on." The flutter came back, soft, delicate, unmistakable. Mave's breath caught. She pressed both hands flat against her abdomen. Waited. It happened again. Stronger this time, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Impossible. Doc Pritchard had said, but Doc Pritchard wasn't here, and her body was telling her something different, something terrifying and wonderful, and so fragile she was afraid to even think it too loud. She couldn't be. She was barren, ruined. The fever had destroyed everything inside her that could make life. But the flutter didn't lie. Mave lay awake for hours, hands on her stomach, feeling that tiny, persistent movement. A secret her body was keeping. A miracle she didn't deserve and couldn't explain. When she finally slept, she dreamed of a baby with Silas's eyes and her father's smile and a laugh that sounded like church bells. The days blurred into a rhythm. Wake at dawn, feed the chickens, eat breakfast, work the garden, mend clothes, learn to make bread, help with the wash, eat supper on the porch, watch the stars come out, sleep without nightmares. Maeve's hands grew calloused, her skin browned. Her body remembered how to be strong, and the flutter in her belly grew stronger. She didn't tell Silas. Couldn't. Not yet. What if she was wrong? What if it was just gas or hunger, or her body playing tricks on her desperate heart? What if she said it out loud and God took it away? So she kept it to herself. A secret. A hope. A terror. But her body was changing. Subtle things. Her breasts ached. Her stomach, always hollow, started to round just slightly. She was hungry all the time, ravenous in a way that felt different from starvation. She caught Silas watching her sometimes, thoughtful, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. One morning, 3 weeks after she'd arrived, Maeve burned the bread. She'd been distracted, dizzy, her hands shaking for no reason she could name. The smell of smoke filled the kitchen. She yanked the pan from the oven, staring at the blackened loaf. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. Useless, wasteful. Can't even do the simplest thing right. Maeve's vision blurred. Her chest tightened. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The pan slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. Maeve, Silas's voice, distant, concerned. She backed against the wall, pressing her hands over her face. I'm sorry. I'll fix it. I'll make another one. Please don't. Maeve, closer now, gentle. It's just bread. I ruined it. It's just bread. But it's just bread. Silas was in front of her now, not touching, just there, solid, real. You're not in trouble. I'm not angry. It's just burned bread. We'll feed it to the chickens. They won't care. Maeve lowered her hands. Silas's face was calm, patient, not a trace of anger in his eyes. I thought, her voice broke, my mother would. I'm not your mother. Firm, kind. You could burn every loaf of bread from here to Sunday, and I still wouldn't hurt you. You understand? Maeve nodded. Her whole body shook. Come here, Silas said. She didn't move. Come here, he repeated, opening his arms. Maeve stepped forward. Let him wrap his arms around her. She pressed her face against his shoulder and finally let herself cry for the bread, for her mother, for 3 years of fear she couldn't shake, for the impossible flutter in her belly that might be real or might be the cruelest trick her body had ever played. Silas held her, didn't shush her, didn't tell her to stop, just held her until the tears ran dry and her breathing evened out. Better, he asked. I don't know. That's okay too. He made her sit, made her drink water, made a fresh batch of dough and walked her through it again, patient and calm, like she hadn't just fallen apart over burned bread. This time the loaf came out perfect. Golden, crusty. The kitchen smelled like yeast and second chances. See, Silas said, cutting her a thick slice. You've got it. Maeve bit into the warm bread. It tasted like forgiveness. That night, sitting on the porch with the stars overhead and just dogs snoring at their feet, Silas said, You want to talk about what happened earlier? Maeve shook her head. You sure? She hesitated. Then, my mother used to beat me when I made mistakes. Silas's hands curled into fists. How often? Often enough. Maeve's voice was flat, empty. She said it was for my own good, that I needed to learn, that the world wouldn't be kind to a useless girl. Your mother, Silas said carefully, is a goddamn monster. She's just angry. The fever? Stop defending her. Silas turned to face her. I don't care how angry she was. I don't care what she lost. You don't beat a child, you don't beat anyone. and you sure as hell don't make them believe they deserve it." Maeve's eyes burned. "Sometimes I still think I do." "Well, you don't," Silas's voice gentled. "And every time you think that I want you to tell me, so I can remind you it's a lie." "Why do you care so much?" "Because someone should have cared about you years ago and they didn't, so I'm making up for lost time." Maeve looked at him, at his weathered face and tired eyes, and the grief he carried like stones in his pockets. "You're a good man, Silas Danner." "I'm just a man trying not to be a bad one." He stood. "Come on, let's get some sleep. Tomorrow we ride out to check the cattle." Maeve followed him inside. That night, lying in her bed with the moonlight silver on the walls, she touched her stomach again. The flutter was stronger now, persistent, real. She whispered into the dark, "I think you're real. I think you're really here, and I'm so scared." The flutter answered, like a promise, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Maeve closed her eyes and let herself believe just for a moment that maybe miracles still existed, that maybe she was carrying one, that maybe after 3 years of dying, she was finally learning how to live. The horse's name was Pepper, and she was the gentlest creature Maeve had ever met. Silas helped her into the saddle at dawn, his hands steady on her waist as she swung her leg over. The ground suddenly felt very far away. "You're doing fine," Silas said, handing her the reins. "Just hold on, she knows where we're going." Maeve gripped the saddle horn. Her thighs ached already. The flutter in her belly had been particularly strong that morning, and she'd barely kept her breakfast down. But she'd said yes to this ride, and she wouldn't back out now. Silas mounted his own horse, a big bay gelding named Duke, and they set off toward the far pasture where the cattle grazed. The sun was still low, painting everything gold and pink. The air smelled like sage and dust, and something wild Maeve couldn't name. They rode in silence for a while. Maeve focused on staying upright on the rhythm of Pepper's walk, on not thinking about how her body felt different now. Heavier, fuller, like she was carrying something precious and terrifying. "You're quiet today," Silas said. "Just concentrating on not falling off." "Something like that." He smiled. "You're a natural. Sarah took weeks to stop looking like a sack of potatoes on a horse." Maeve almost laughed. Almost. "I don't believe that." "It's true. She was fearless with animals on the ground, but put her on a horse, and she turned into a church mouse." His voice went soft. "I miss that about her. The way she'd curse at Duke for walking too fast, then turn around and bottle feed a dying calf all night without complaint." "How long were you married?" 5 years. Met her at a barn dance in Red Mesa. She stepped on my foot 3 times during the first song." He laughed. "I knew right then I was going to marry her." Maeve's chest ached. "That's a good memory." "It is." Silas glanced at her. "You ever been in love?" The question caught her off guard. "No, not once. There was a boy, before the fever. He used to walk me home from church." Maeve's throat tightened. "After I got sick, he stopped coming around. His mother said I was bad luck, that the fever marked me." "His loss," Silas said flatly. "Maybe. Or maybe she was right." She wasn't. Silas pulled Duke to a stop, waited for Maeve to catch up. People who think sickness is punishment are fools, and people who abandon someone because they got hurt are cowards. Maeve looked at him, at the certainty in his eyes. "You really believe that?" "I know that." They reached the pasture by mid-morning. 20 cattle grazed across the valley, fat and lazy in the sun. Silas counted them, checked for injuries, made notes in a small leather book he kept in his saddlebag. Maeve dismounted carefully. Her legs trembled. She leaned against Pepper, breathing hard, pressing one hand to her stomach. The flutter came back, stronger than ever. She gasped. "You all right?" Silas was beside her in an instant. "I'm fine, just tired." "You look pale." "I said I'm fine." Silas studied her. Too long. Too careful. "Maeve?" Can we rest for a minute? She interrupted. Please. He nodded slowly. There's shade under those cottonwoods. Come on. They sat in the cool shadow of the trees. Silas handed her a canteen. She drank deep, trying to calm the nausea rolling through her gut. The flutter wouldn't stop now. Persistent, demanding, like something inside her was trying to get her attention. How long have you been feeling sick? Silas asked quietly. Mave froze. What? You've been pale for days. You barely ate breakfast. And just now you looked like you were going to pass out. He paused. I'm not blind, Mave. I'm just tired. The work. Don't lie to me. The words were gentle but firm. Maeve's hands twisted in her lap. She couldn't tell him, couldn't say it out loud. What if she was wrong? What if it was just her body betraying her again, making her hope for something impossible? I think... Her voice cracked. I think something's wrong with me. Silas's face went tight. Wrong how? I don't know. I feel different. My body's different. There's this... She pressed her hand to her stomach. This feeling. Like something's moving inside me. But that's impossible. Doc Pritchard said I was barren. The fever destroyed everything. So it can't be what I think it is. It has to be something else. Something bad. The silence stretched thin and fragile. Then Silas said very carefully, When did you start feeling this? The first morning I was here. I thought I imagined it. But it keeps happening. Getting stronger. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm scared, Silas. What if I'm dying? What if the fever didn't finish the job and now it's coming back to... Stop. Silas interrupted. Just stop. He moved closer, not touching, but near enough she could feel his warmth. Mave, look at me. She did. His eyes were steady, calm. What you're describing, he said slowly, doesn't sound like dying. It sounds like the opposite. Maeve's breath caught. Don't say that. Why not? Because I can't. It's not possible, Doc Pritchard said. Doctors can be wrong. Not about this. Not about something this important. Her voice rose desperate. He examined me after the fever. He said the scarring was too severe, that I'd never conceive, that even if I did, I'd never carry to term. He was certain, Silas. He staked his reputation on it. And yet, here you are, feeling something move inside you. Silas's voice was steady, unshakable. How far along would you be if it was real? Maeve's mind raced. She counted back. I don't know. I've never... Her face burned. There's been no one. Not since before the fever. So it's impossible. Was there anyone before your mother sold you? No, God no. My mother barely let me leave the house. Then she stopped, went very still. Wait. What? There was... Maeve's voice dropped to a whisper. Right before she sold me, maybe 6 weeks before, there was a man, a hired hand who came to help with the harvest. Her throat closed. He cornered me in the barn one night. I tried to fight him off, but he was stronger. It only happened once. I never told anyone. I was so ashamed. And then my mother sold me anyway, so I thought it didn't matter. Silas's face went dark. Dangerous. Did he force you? Mave couldn't speak. She just nodded. Jesus Christ. Silas stood abruptly, hands curling into fists. He paced a few steps, breathing hard. Then he turned back. What was his name? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Silas, please. What was his name, Mave? She flinched at the steel in his voice. Jacob Turner. But he's gone. He left town right after. I don't know where he went and I don't care. Silas was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was controlled. Barely. If I ever see him, I'll kill him. Don't say that. I mean it. It won't change anything. It already happened. I can't undo it. Mave wrapped her arms around herself. And now I might be carrying his child. The child of a man who hurt me. A child I was told I could never have. A child I don't even know how to want. Do you want it? Silas asked quietly. The question hung in the air like smoke. Mave touched her stomach, felt the flutter. That tiny, persistent heartbeat that wasn't hers. I don't know, she whispered. I'm terrified. I'm angry. I'm confused. But I also... Her voice broke. I feel it moving, and I think maybe it's real. Maybe I'm not as broken as everyone said. And that scares me more than anything, because what if I let myself believe it, and then I lose it? What if my body rejects it? What if Doc Pritchard was right, and this kills me? Silas knelt in front of her, took her hands. His palms were rough and warm. Listen to me. If you're carrying a child and I think you are, then we'll figure it out. Together. You won't go through this alone. I'll get you a proper doctor. Not Doc Pritchard. Someone from Santa Fe who knows what they're doing. We'll make sure you're safe. We'll make sure the baby's safe. Why would you do that? It's not your responsibility. You're under my roof. That makes it my responsibility. His grip tightened. And more than that, He stopped, swallowed hard. I care about you, Mave. I know it's only been a few weeks, but I care. And I'll be damned if I let you face this alone. Mave stared at him, at the fierce protectiveness in his eyes, at the way he held her hands like they were something precious. Something shifted inside her, not the flutter, something deeper, warmer. I don't deserve your kindness, she whispered. Yes, you do. You don't even know me. I know enough. Silas's voice went soft. I know you're strong. I know you survived things that should have killed you. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. I know you're scared, but you keep going anyway. That's more than enough. Tears streamed down Mave's face. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not strong enough? Then I'll be strong for both of us until you are. The words broke something open inside her. Mave collapsed forward, sobbing into Silas's shoulder. He held her tight, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other wrapped around her waist. He didn't tell her to stop crying, didn't try to fix it with empty platitudes. He just held her while she fell apart. When the tears finally stopped, Mave pulled back. Her face was blotchy and swollen. She probably looked like hell. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. I ruined your shirt. I have others. Silas brushed a strand of hair from her face. We should head back, get you rested, and tomorrow I'll ride into Red Mesa, see if anyone knows a good doctor in Santa Fe. I can't afford a doctor. I can. Silas. I'm not arguing about this. You need medical care. You'll get medical care. He stood, offering his hand. Can you ride back, or do you need me to lead Pepper? I can ride. You sure? Mave nodded. She let him help her onto the horse. Her body felt heavy, exhausted. But something had shifted. The secret she'd been carrying alone for weeks was out now. Shared. And Silas hadn't recoiled, hadn't called her damaged or cursed, or told her she deserved what happened. He'd just promised to help, as if that was the simplest thing in the world. They rode back slowly. The sun climbed higher, turning the desert into something that shimmered and danced. Mave watched Silas's back the easy way. He sat his horse, the strength in his shoulders. She thought about the way he'd held her, the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. And she wondered, terrified and hopeful in equal measure, if maybe this broken, impossible thing between them could turn into something real. That night, Silas made her favorite stew, set her up on the porch with a quilt and a cup of tea. Just dog curled at her feet. The stars came out one by one, punching holes in the velvet sky. You should eat, Silas said, handing her a bowl. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. The baby needs it. The word hung in the air. Baby. He'd said it so casually, like it was already real, already certain. Mave took the bowl, ate slowly. The stew was warm and rich and tasted like safety. Silas, she said after a while. Yeah. Why are you being so kind to me? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, because I know what it's like to lose everything, to be so broken you don't think you'll ever be whole again. He looked at her. After Sarah died, I wanted to die too. Every morning I woke up and wondered why I was still breathing, why God took her and left me. I spent months out here alone, barely surviving. And then Mrs. Kowalski showed up with food and a lecture about how rotting wasn't the same as grieving. He smiled faintly. She saved my life, reminded me I still had one worth living, and I thought if someone did that for me, maybe I could do it for someone else. So I'm your good deed. Mave's voice came out sharper than she intended. No. Silas turned to face her fully. You're not a good deed. You're... He stopped, swallowed. You're someone I want in my life, someone I look forward to seeing every morning, someone who makes this place feel less like a tomb and more like a home. His eyes held hers. I'm not doing this out of charity, Mave. I'm doing this because I care. Because somewhere in the last few weeks, you stopped being a stranger and started being someone I... He broke off, looked away. Someone important. Mave's heart hammered. Silas? I know it's too soon. I know you're scared and pregnant and dealing with more than anyone should have to deal with. I'm not asking you for anything. I just... He ran a hand through his hair. I needed you to know, that's all. The silence stretched between them, fragile, terrified, full of things neither of them knew how to say. Mave set down her bowl, stood, walked to where Silas sat on the porch railing. I was a mistake, she said quietly. My whole life I was told I was a mistake the Lord forgot to fix, that I was broken, worthless, less than human because I couldn't give anyone children. And I believed it. I wore it like a brand. She touched her stomach. But then this happened, this impossible, terrifying thing. And now I don't know what to believe anymore. Silas's jaw tightened. You're not a mistake. How do you know? Because mistakes don't survive what you've survived. Mistakes don't keep fighting when the world tells them to give up. Mistakes don't stand here pregnant and terrified, still trying to figure out how to live. He reached for her hand. A person's worth isn't what they can give. It's what survives in them after everything tries to break them. And you're still here, Mave, still breathing, still hoping. That's not a mistake, that's a miracle. Mave's eyes burned. You really believe that? I know it. She looked at their joined hands, at the calluses on his palm, at the way his fingers curled around hers like he was afraid she'd disappear. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. How to be cared about. How to care back. How to let someone see me this broken and not run away. Then we'll learn together. Silas's thumb brushed over her knuckles. One day at a time. No expectations. No pressure. Just two people trying to survive in a hard world. What if I fail? Then you fail, and we'll figure out what comes next. What if the baby dies? Then we'll grieve, together. What if I die? Silas's face went pale. You won't. You don't know that. Then I'll make damn sure you don't. His voice was fierce now, desperate. I didn't pull you out of that hell just to lose you to childbirth. We'll get the best doctor money can buy. We'll do everything right. And if something goes wrong, we'll fight it. Together. Mave stared at him. At the raw emotion in his eyes. At the way he said we, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. Of what? Of caring too much. Of losing you before I really get to know you. Of... He stopped, shook his head. Of a lot of things. Mave stepped closer, close enough to feel his breath, to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, to smell the sun and dust and something uniquely him. Silas, she said softly. Yeah. I think I'm starting to care about you too. His breath hitched. Yeah. Yeah. She lifted her free hand, touched his face. His skin was warm and rough under her fingers. And it terrifies me. Me too, he said again. They stood there inches apart, the stars overhead, and the desert wind singing through the grass. Mave felt the flutter in her belly, felt her heart hammering against her ribs, felt something fragile and precious unfurling inside her like a flower in spring. Silas leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away, to say no. She didn't. Their lips met, soft, tentative, like they were both afraid the other would shatter. It wasn't the kiss of passion or hunger. It was the kiss of two wounded people daring to believe they might be allowed to heal, to hope, to live. When they pulled apart, Mave was crying. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. Silas wiped her tears with his thumb. I've got you. Promise. I promise. She pressed her forehead against his chest, listened to his heartbeat, steady, strong, real. I don't know how this ends, she whispered. Neither do I. Silas wrapped his arms around her. But I know how it begins, right here, right now, with us deciding we're worth fighting for. Mave closed her eyes, let herself be held, let herself feel safe for the first time in 3 years. And in her belly, the flutter grew stronger, like a promise, like a heartbeat, like life refusing to be silenced. The weeks that followed were a blur of quiet moments and growing trust. Silas rode to Red Mesa and came back with information about a doctor in Santa Fe. Dr. Catherine Walsh, a midwife with 20 years of experience who'd delivered more babies than anyone in the territory. He wrote to her immediately explaining the situation, asking her to come to Red Mesa when Mave was further along. Mave's body continued to change. Her stomach rounded. Her breasts ached. She was sick most mornings, vomiting into the basin until there was nothing left. Silas held her hair back, brought her water, never complained. I'm sorry, she said after a particularly bad morning. For what? For being a burden. You're not. Silas handed her a damp cloth. You're growing a human. That's hard work. I feel useless. You fed the chickens this morning, weeded the garden yesterday, and made bread the day before. You're the opposite of useless. He crouched beside her. And even if you couldn't do any of that, you'd still matter. You know that, right? Mave nodded. But the old voices her mother's Doc Pritchard's, the whole town that called her cursed, still whispered in the back of her mind. Worthless. Broken. Better off dead. She tried to ignore them. Tried to focus on the present. On Silas's steady presence. On the way he looked at her like she was something precious. On the flutter in her belly that grew stronger every day. One evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Silas said, I want to tell you something. Mave looked at him. Okay. When Sarah was pregnant, I was terrified. Every single day. I kept thinking something would go wrong, that I'd lose her, and I did. His voice went rough. For months I blamed myself. Thought if I'd done something different, gotten a better midwife, brought her to Santa Fe, something she'd still be alive. But the truth is, sometimes people die, and there's no one to blame. It just happens. He looked at Mave. I'm telling you this because I'm terrified right now too. Terrified you'll die. Terrified the baby will die. Terrified I'll lose you before I really get to keep you. Mave's throat tightened. So what do? We live anyway. Silas reached for her hand. We love anyway. We hope anyway, because the alternative is rotting alive, and I've already done that. I'm not doing it again. Even if it means losing everything. Even then. He squeezed her hand. Because having you here even for a little while is better than the nothing I had before. Mave felt tears prick her eyes. You're a good man, Silas Danner. I'm just a man who doesn't want to be alone anymore. Me either, Mave whispered. That night, for the first time, Silas kissed her goodnight. Not on the cheek or the forehead, but on the mouth. Soft and lingering and full of promises, neither of them dared speak out loud. When Mave lay in her bed, hand on her belly, she whispered to the life growing inside her. You're the proof they can't erase. You're the miracle nobody believed in. And I'm going to fight for you. For us. Even if it kills me. The flutter answered. Strong and persistent. Like a heartbeat saying, I'm here. I'm real. Hold on. And for the first time in her life, Mave believed that maybe, just maybe, she was allowed to hope for a future that didn't end in death. That maybe broken things could heal. That maybe love was the beginning of miracles, not the end of them. Mave was 4 months along when Eli Barrett showed up. She was hanging laundry on the line, her belly round enough now that she had to lean back to balance the weight. The morning sun was warm on her shoulders. Just Dog dozed in the shade. Everything felt peaceful, ordinary, safe. Then she heard the wagon. She turned, shading her eyes against the sun. A heavy freight wagon rolled up the path, pulled by 2 massive draft horses. The man driving it was thick-set, with a beard that hadn't seen a razor in weeks, and eyes that moved over everything like he was calculating its worth. Mave's stomach tightened. She knew that look. Had seen it in her mother's eyes every time she counted pennies. Morning, the man called, pulling the wagon to a stop. This the Danner place? It is. Mave kept her voice steady. Mr. Danner's checking the north fence. He'll be back by noon. I'll wait. The man climbed down, dusting his hands on his pants. Name's Eli Barrett, merchant out of Kansas. I've got business with Danner. Something cold slithered down Mave's spine. Kansas. What kind of business? The kind that don't concern hired help. His eyes raked over her, lingering on her belly. Though I'd wager it concerns you plenty. Mave's hands went to her stomach instinctively. Protective. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. Eli stepped closer. Too close. You're Temperance Lark's girl. The Barren one she sold to Danner for $40. His grin was sharp. Mean. Except you don't look so barren now, do you? Mave backed up. Her hip hit the laundry basket. You need to leave. I'll leave when I've said my piece to Danner. See, I made the introductions between him and your mama. Told him she had a girl for sale, good worker, no complications. That's what your mama promised me. No complications. He gestured at her belly. This looks like a complication. It's none of your business. It is when I brokered the deal. When I put my reputation on the line, telling Danner he was getting what he paid for. Eli's voice hardened. Barren means barren, not knocked up 4 months later. I wasn't lying. I was. Mave's voice shook. The doctors said I couldn't have children. I didn't know this would happen. Convenient. Eli spat into the dirt. Either you lied, or Danner got you pregnant himself. Either way, it's fraud, and I don't do business with liars. Get off my property. Both of them turned. Silas stood 20 feet away, rifle in his hands. Not pointed at Eli, not yet, but the threat was clear. Danner. Eli's smile didn't reach his eyes. Good to see you again. Can't say the same. Silas walked forward, positioning himself between Mave and Eli. You've got 10 seconds to state your business and leave. Business is simple. The girl you bought was sold as Barren. That was the deal. But she's clearly not Barren, which means either she lied or you've been busy. Eli crossed his arms. Either way, I want recompense. $40 back plus 20 for my trouble. Call it the cost of damaged goods. Silas went very still, the kind of still that came before violence. Say that again, Silas said softly. Damaged goods, false advertising, fraud. Pick your term, they all mean the same thing. You paid for a barren woman and got a fertile one. That's a breach of contract. She's not goods. Silas's voice was low, dangerous. She's a person. Person, property, doesn't matter. I brokered a deal in good faith, and that deal was violated. I want my cut back. Mave felt sick. She pressed one hand against the laundry line to steady herself. The baby kicked hard, like it could sense her fear. You're not getting a damn thing, Silas said. Now get the hell off my land before I make you. Eli's face darkened. You threatening me? I'm promising you. Silas raised the rifle now, still not pointing it directly at Eli but close enough. You've got 5 seconds. This isn't over, Danner. I know the law. I know the contracts. She was sold under false pretenses, and I've got a right to recompense. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Eli climbed back onto his wagon. Before he snapped the reins, he looked at Mave one more time. Should have stayed in Kansas where you belong, girl. Out here, you're just a liability. The wagon rolled away, kicking up dust. Silas didn't lower the rifle until Eli was completely out of sight. Then he turned to Mave. His face was pale. You all right? He asked. Mave shook her head. Her whole body trembled. He called me property. I know. He said I was damaged goods. He's an idiot. He's going to make trouble. Mave's voice rose. He said he'd get a lawyer. What if he can prove fraud? What if they take the baby? What if they take me back to my mother? That's not going to happen. Silas set the rifle down and pulled her into his arms. I won't let it happen. You can't stop the law. Watch me. He held her tight. Listen to me. You're not goods. You're not property. You're my... He stopped. Swallowed. You're under my protection. And anyone who wants to hurt you will have to go through me first. Mave pressed her face against his chest. She felt the steady thud of his heartbeat, felt his arms around her like a fortress, but she also felt the fear clawing at her throat. What if Eli was right? What if there were legal grounds to claim fraud? What if Silas lost everything because of her? Maybe I should leave, she whispered. Silas pulled back, gripping her shoulders. Don't you dare. If I'm not here, he can't. If you leave, I'll come after you. I'll find you wherever you go and drag you back if I have to. His eyes were fierce. You're not running. Not from this. Not from me. We face this together. I'm scared. Me too. Silas's hands gentled. Hands. But we've been scared before and we're still here. We'll figure this out. That night, Silas rode into Red Mesa to talk to the sheriff. He came back after midnight exhausted and grim. What did he say? Mave asked from the porch where she'd been waiting. He said Eli doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. You weren't sold as a slave. Slavery's illegal. You were offered work in exchange for room and board, which is legal. And since we're not married, there's no contract that obligates you to be barren or fertile or anything else. Silas sat beside her. But he also said Eli could make trouble anyway. File claims, spread rumors, make life difficult. So what do we do? Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, We get married. Mave's head snapped up. What? If we're married, you're legally my wife, not hired help, not property, my wife, and Eli can't touch you. Silas turned to face her. I know it's sudden. I know you've got 1,000 reasons to say no, but it would protect you, protect the baby. And I... He stopped, started again. I want to marry you, Mave, not because of Eli, not just for protection, but because I care about you, because I want to build a life with you, because you make me want to live again. Mave stared at him. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Silas. You don't have to answer now. Think about it. Take as long as you need. But know that I mean it. Every word. He took her hand. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not even asking you to want this. I'm just asking you to let me protect you the only way I know how. Mave looked at their joined hands, at the calluses on his palm, at the way his fingers trembled slightly like he was terrified she'd say no. She thought about the last 4 months, the way he'd held her when she cried, the way he'd never once treated her like she was broken, the way he'd promised to stand between her and anything that tried to hurt her. She thought about the baby growing inside her, the miracle nobody believed in, the life that deserved a chance. She thought about the kiss they'd shared under the stars, the way her heart had stuttered when he'd called her important, the way she'd started to believe, fragile and terrified, that maybe she was allowed to be loved. Yes, she whispered. Silas went very still. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Maeve's voice grew stronger. Not just for protection, not just for the baby, but because I care about you too. Because you've given me something I never thought I'd have again. What's that? Hope. Silas's eyes shone. He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing her cheeks. You won't regret this. I know. He kissed her then, deep and sure and full of promises. Mave kissed him back, tasting salt and hope and the beginning of something that felt like forever. When they pulled apart, Silas pressed his forehead to hers. We'll do it tomorrow. Ride into Red Mesa. Find the pastor. Make it official. That fast? That fast, Silas smiled. Unless you want a fancy wedding with flowers and a white dress. I just want you, Mave said simply. Then you've got me. They were married the next day in a small church in Red Mesa. The pastor was an old man with kind eyes who didn't ask questions about Mave's belly or why they were in such a hurry. He just read, the vows, had them sign the certificate, and pronounce them husband and wife. Mrs. Kowalski from the general store came as a witness. She hugged Mave so tight it hurt. About time someone treated you right, she whispered in Mave's ear. You hold on to this one. He's a good man. I will, Mave promised. They rode back to Red Mesa as the sun set, painting the sky every color of fire. Mave wore her only good dress, pale blue, mended in 3 places. Silas wore his Sunday shirt. They didn't have rings, didn't have a feast, didn't have anything except each other and a piece of paper that said they belonged together. But it was enough. That night, Silas carried her over the threshold like she weighed nothing. Set her down gently in the main room that was now theirs, not just his, but theirs. You sure about this? He asked. I'm sure. I won't push. We can take it slow as you need. Mave looked at him. At this man who'd bought her freedom, given her safety, offered her hope. Who'd stood between her and the world and said mine like it was a vow. I trust you, she said. Yeah. They made love slowly, carefully, like they were both afraid the other would break. Silas was gentle in a way Mave had never known was possible. His hands were reverent, his kisses were soft. He whispered her name like it was a prayer. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, listening to each other breathe. Mave's hand rested on her belly. The baby kicked lazily, content. You think it's a boy or a girl? Silas asked. I don't know. Does it matter? Not even a little. He covered her hand with his. As long as you're both healthy, I don't care. What if I'm not? Maeve's voice went small. What if I die like Sarah? Silas went tense beside her. Don't say that. But what if? Then I'll raise the baby and spend the rest of my life missing you. His voice was rough, broken. But I'm not planning on it. Dr. Walsh is coming in 2 months. She'll make sure you're all right. She'll deliver the baby safe, and then we'll have a lifetime to figure out what comes next. Mave turned to face him. You really believe that? I have to. She kissed him, soft and lingering, Then I'll believe it too. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, the baby kicking between them like a promise. 2 weeks later, Eli Barrett came back. This time he brought 2 men with him, big men, men who looked like they'd been hired for trouble. Mave was in the garden when she saw them. Her heart lurched. She dropped the basket of tomatoes and ran for the house. "Silas!" she shouted. He was at the door in seconds, rifle already in hand. "Get inside! Lock the door! Don't come out unless I call for you!" "Silas, there's 3 of them! Inside! Now!" Mave obeyed. She stood at the window watching, one hand pressed against her belly. Eli climbed down from his wagon. The 2 men flanked him like dogs. "Danner," Eli called. "We need to talk." "Said everything I needed to say last time." Silas stood on the porch, rifle loose in his hands. "You're trespassing." "I've got a proposition. Legal this time. Fair." Eli gestured at the house. "You give me the girl, I drop all claims. You keep the $40. We call it even." Mave's blood went cold. "She's my wife now," Silas said. "Not for sale." "Wife." Eli laughed, sharp and mean. "That's convenient. Marry her fast to cover up the fraud." "There's no fraud. She believed she was barren. So did I. Turns out the doctors were wrong. That's not fraud, that's a miracle." "Call it what you want. I call it a liability." Eli's voice hardened. "I'm giving you one chance, Danner. Hand her over and we walk away. Keep her, and I'll make sure every rancher from here to Santa Fe knows you're harboring a liar. You'll never sell cattle again. Never get credit at the bank. Never. You ever call her property again?" Silas interrupted, his voice like steel. "I'll bury you before sundown." The silence stretched thin and deadly. One of the hired men put his hand on his gun. Silas raised the rifle, not aiming at anyone, just holding it, ready. "You really want to die for a pregnant whore?" Eli asked. The shot echoed across the valley. Silas had fired into the dirt at Eli's feet. Dust exploded. The horses reared. The hired men stumbled back. "Next one's not a warning," Silas said quietly. "Get off my land." Eli's face went purple with rage. "You're making a mistake, Danner. A big one. I'll ruin you. I'll leave." Silas chambered another round. "Before I change my mind about letting you live." Eli climbed back onto the wagon. The hired men followed. As they turned to leave, Eli shouted back, "This isn't over. You hear me? This isn't over." The wagon disappeared down the path. Silas stood there for a long moment, rifle still raised, breathing hard. Then he lowered it, turned, saw Mave standing in the doorway. "You all right?" he asked. Mave shook her head. Tears streamed down her face. "He's going to ruin you. Because of me. Everything you've built, he's going to destroy it. Let him try." "Silas, I mean it." Silas set the rifle down and pulled her close. "I don't care what he does. I don't care if I lose every cow, every dollar, every friend I've got. You're worth more than all of it. I'm not worth this." "Yes, you are." He tilted her chin up, looked her in the eyes. "You're worth everything, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you if I have to." Mave collapsed against him, sobbing. The baby kicked hard, angry or scared, she couldn't tell. Silas held her through it, one hand cradling her belly, the other wrapped around her shoulders. "I'm scared," Mave whispered. "Me too. What if he comes back with more men? What if he gets the law on his side? What if—" "Then we fight." Silas's voice was firm. "We fight for you, for the baby, for us, and we don't stop until we win." That night, Mave couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling the baby move inside her. Her mind raced. What if Eli made good on his threats? What if Silas lost the ranch? What if she'd ruined his life just by existing? She slipped out of bed carefully, trying not to wake him, walked to the window, stared out at the desert under the moonlight. "Can't sleep," Silas's voice behind her. She turned. He was sitting up in bed watching her. "I keep thinking," Mave said slowly, "that maybe Eli's right. Maybe I am a liability. Maybe you'd be better off without me." "Don't." Silas got out of bed. Walked to her. "Don't you dare go down that road." "But if I left?" "If you left, I'd follow. I told you that." He took her hands. "Mave, listen to me. I didn't save you from your mother just to lose you to fear. I didn't marry you to protect you from Eli, just to watch you destroy yourself from the inside. You're not a liability. You're my wife. And I chose you, knowing everything, understanding everything. I chose you anyway." "Why?" The question burst out desperate. "Why would you choose me? Why would you risk everything for someone as broken as me?" "Because you're not broken." Silas cupped her face. "You're healing. And I'd rather spend my life watching you heal than spend it alone in this house pretending I'm alive when I'm just existing." Maeve's throat closed. "I don't know how to be loved." "Then I'll teach you." His thumbs brushed her cheeks. "One day at a time, for the rest of our lives." "What if I fail?" "Then we fail together." Maeve stared at him, at this man who'd given her everything safety hope a future without asking for anything in return except the chance to love her. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me," she whispered. "No," Silas said softly. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You just don't know it yet." He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promises. Maeve kissed him back, tasting salt and hope and the beginning of forever. When they pulled apart, she placed his hand on her belly. The baby kicked against his palm. "That's your child," Maeve said. "Not Jacob Turner's. Not some stranger's. Yours. Because you're the one who chose us. You're the one who stayed." Silas's eyes shone with tears. "You mean that?" "I mean it." Maeve's voice was strong now. Certain. "This baby is ours, and anyone who says different will have to answer to me." Silas laughed, rough and wet. "You're fierce when you want to be. I learned from the best." They stood there in the moonlight, hands on her belly, feeling the baby move between them. Outside, the desert wind sang through the grass. The stars punched holes in the sky. And somewhere far away, Eli Barrett planned his next move. But in that moment, none of it mattered, because Maeve had learned something her mother never taught her: that love wasn't weakness, that hope wasn't foolish, that miracles weren't just things that happened to other people. They were things you fought for, things you protected, things you chose every single day, even when the world told you to give up. And Mave Danner no longer. Mave Lark, no longer the girl the world threw away, chose to fight. For her husband. For her baby. For the life they were building together. Where they buried her, love had made her bloom. And nothing, not Eli Barrett, not the law, not even death itself would take that away from her. Dr. Catherine Walsh arrived on a Tuesday morning in early March when the desert was just beginning to remember what green looked like. She was a small woman, no taller than Maeve, with iron gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, and eyes that had seen everything twice. She climbed down from her wagon with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd delivered babies in worse places than Red Mesa. "Mrs. Danner," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Walsh." Maeve shook it. The doctor's grip was firm. "Sure. Thank you for coming all this way. Your husband's letter was persuasive. Said you were told you'd never conceive." Dr. Walsh's eyes swept over Maeve's rounded belly, 7 months now, unmistakable. Clearly someone was mistaken. "Doc Pritchard in Kansas. He examined me after the fever." "Fever." Dr. Walsh's expression sharpened. "What kind?" "Scarlet fever. 3 years ago. Nearly killed me. He said the internal scarring made pregnancy impossible." Dr. Walsh made a thoughtful sound. "Let's see what we're working with. Is there somewhere private we can talk?" Silas led them to the bedroom. He started to leave, but Dr. Walsh stopped him. "You're the husband." "Yes, ma'am." "Then you stay. Birth is a family matter, not a women's secret." She set her medical bag on the bed. "Now, Mrs. Danner, I need to examine you. I'll be thorough but gentle. If anything hurts you, tell me immediately." The examination took nearly an hour. Dr. Walsh's hands were professional, her questions direct. She listened to the baby's heartbeat through a wooden tube pressed against Maeve's belly, asked about morning sickness, bleeding pain, checked Maeve's ankles for swelling, her color, her breathing. Finally, she stepped back. "Get dressed, then we talk." When Maeve was decent again, Dr. Walsh sat in the chair by the window. Silas stood behind Maeve, one hand on her shoulder. "First, the good news," Dr. Walsh said. "The baby's heartbeat is strong. Position feels right. You're healthy, healthier than most women I see at 7 months. Whatever damage the fever caused, it didn't prevent conception or gestation." Maeve's breath caught. "So I can carry to term." "There's always risk, but I've seen worse cases deliver healthy babies." Dr. Walsh's expression grew serious. "Now the hard truth. Your pelvis is narrow, narrower than I'd like. And given the scarring your previous doctor mentioned, there's a chance of complications during labor. Tearing, hemorrhaging, the baby getting stuck." Silas's hand tightened on Maeve's shoulder. "What can we do?" "Pray, prepare, and have me here when the time comes." Dr. Walsh leaned forward. "I've delivered over 300 babies, Mrs. Danner. I've lost 12 mothers and 23 infants. Those numbers keep me humble. I can't promise you'll both survive, but I can promise I'll fight like hell to make sure you do." Maeve felt cold. 12 mothers. 12 too many, Dr. Walsh agreed. "But here's what you need to understand. Those 12. Most had no prenatal care, no preparation, no experienced midwife. You have all 3. Your odds are better than theirs were." "But not guaranteed." "Nothing in life is guaranteed, child. You could walk outside right now and get struck by lightning. We do the best we can with what we're given." Dr. Walsh stood. "I'll stay in Red Mesa for the next 2 months. When your time comes, send for me immediately. Don't wait. Don't try to handle it yourself. The first sign of labor, you send your husband riding like the devil's after him." "Yes, ma'am," Maeve whispered. "Good." Dr. Walsh picked up her bag. "Now I want you resting more. No heavy lifting. Plenty of water. Red meat twice a week if you can manage it. The baby needs iron. And walk, every day. Keeps your strength up and the baby in position." She gave them a few more instructions, promised to check on Maeve again in 2 weeks, and left in the same brisk, efficient manner she'd arrived. When the wagon disappeared down the path, Maeve turned to Silas. His face was pale. "You heard what she said," Maeve said quietly. "I might not survive this." "Don't." "Silas." "I said don't." His voice was sharp, then it softened. "I can't think about that. If I think about losing you, I'll go crazy. So I'm choosing to believe we'll be fine. Both of you. That's the only way I can breathe." Maeve touched his face. "I'm scared." "I know." He covered her hand with his. "But we've been scared before, and we're still here. What if this time? Then this time I'll hold you through it. And I'll raise our baby knowing their mother was the strongest person I ever met." His eyes were fierce. "But that's not going to happen. You're going to survive. You're going to hold our baby. And we're going to have a lifetime together. Promise?" "I promise to fight for it, every second, every breath." Silas pulled her close. "That's all I can promise. But it's everything I've got." Maeve pressed her face against his chest, felt his heartbeat, steady, strong, the rhythm she'd learned to trust. "Then that's enough," she whispered. The weeks crawled by like years. Maeve's belly grew enormous. Her back ached constantly. Her feet swelled. She couldn't sleep lying down anymore, had to prop herself up with pillows just to breathe. The baby kicked relentlessly like it was trying to punch its way out early. Silas was relentless in his care. He rubbed her feet every night, brought her water constantly, helped her in and out of chairs, never complained when she woke him at 3 in the morning because she needed to walk off the cramps. "You're going to be exhausted," Mave said one night as he massaged her aching calves. "I'll sleep when you're safe." "That could be weeks." "Then I'll be tired for weeks." He looked up at her. "Stop trying to make me regret this. I don't. I won't." Mave felt tears prick her eyes. Damn hormones made her cry at everything now. "I love you." The words hung in the air. She'd never said them before, never dared. Silas went very still. His hands stilled on her legs. "Say that again." "I love you." Mave repeated, stronger now. "I don't know when it happened. Maybe that first day when you gave me a choice. Maybe when you held me after I burned the bread. Maybe when you married me to protect me. But somewhere along the way I fell in love with you, Silas Danner. And I needed you to know. In case—" "Don't finish that sentence." Silas moved up the bed, cupped her face. "I love you too. Have for weeks. Didn't say it because I didn't want to pressure you. Didn't want you to feel obligated." He kissed her forehead, her nose, her mouth. "But I love you, Mave. More than I thought I could love anyone again. You brought me back to life." "We brought each other back," Mave whispered. They held each other as the baby kicked between them. Outside, spring rain started to fall, the first real rain in months. It drummed on the roof like a benediction. "Whatever happens," Mave said quietly, "I want you to know something." "What?" "I forgive my mother." Silas pulled back. "What?" "I forgive her. Not because she deserves it, but because I deserve peace." Mave's voice was steady. "She sold me. Called me worthless. Made me believe I was better off dead. And for years I carried that like it was truth. But it was never truth. It was just her pain trying to become mine." She touched her belly. "I won't pass that pain to this baby. I won't teach them they're only worth what they can give. I won't make them earn love like it's a prize. So I'm forgiving her. Not for her sake, for mine, for ours." Silas's eyes shone. "You're the strongest person I've ever known. I learned from you." "No." He shook his head. "You were always this strong. You just didn't know it yet." 2 weeks later, Eli Barrett made his final move. He showed up with a sheriff's deputy and an official-looking piece of paper. Mave was on the porch shelling peas when they arrived. Her heart sank. "Mrs. Danner," the deputy said, tipping his hat. He was young, uncomfortable, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. "I've got a writ here. Mr. Barrett's claiming fraud in the sale of your person. Says you were advertised as Barren and clearly aren't." "I believed I was Barren," Mave said quietly. "So did everyone else." "That may be, ma'am, but he's got grounds for a civil suit. Judge wants both parties in Red Mesa next week to settle it." Silas appeared in the doorway. "She's 8 months pregnant. She's not traveling to Red Mesa." "I'm afraid she has to, sir. Judge's orders." "Then the judge can come here." The deputy shifted uncomfortably. "Doesn't work that way." "Make it work," Silas said flatly. Eli climbed down from his wagon, smirking. "Having trouble, Danner? Maybe you should have thought about that before you married damaged goods." Silas was down the porch steps before anyone could react. He grabbed Eli by the shirt front, lifted him off his feet, and slammed him against the wagon. "You want to call my wife damaged one more time?" Silas's voice was deadly quiet. "Give me a reason, please." "Silas, don't," Mave called. "He's not worth it." The deputy moved forward. "Mr. Danner, let him go. I don't want to arrest you." Silas held Eli for one more second. Then he released him. Stepped back. "Tell your judge my wife is 8 months pregnant. If he wants to see us, he rides out here." Otherwise, he can dismiss this farce of a lawsuit and stop wasting everyone's time. Eli straightened his shirt face red. You'll regret this. Only thing I regret, Silas said quietly, is not shooting you the first time you showed up. The deputy cleared his throat. I'll relay your message, Mr. Danner, but I can't promise the judge will agree. Then I'll take my chances. They left. Mave waited until they were out of sight before letting out the breath she'd been holding. Silas? I know. I shouldn't have grabbed him. Silas rubbed his face. But hearing him call you that? I don't care what he calls me. Mave stood carefully, one hand on her massive belly. But I'm worried about you. If you'd hit him? I didn't. But you wanted to. Damn right I did. Silas came to her, took her hands. I can't stand by and let people hurt you. Not with words, not with anything. I know, and I love you for it. But we have to be smart. Mave squeezed his hands. Let him have his day in court. Let the judge see I'm real, that I'm not property, that I'm a person who made a choice and is living with the consequences, good and bad. Her voice strengthened. I'm not running from this. I'm not hiding. I'm going to stand in front of that judge and tell him exactly what my mother did, what Eli did, what you did, and let him decide who's in the right. Silas stared at her. You sure? I'm sure. Mave lifted her chin. I've spent my whole life being told I don't matter, that I'm worthless, that I'm less than human. Well, I'm done believing that. And if I have to tell a judge, tell the whole territory that I'm worth something, then that's what I'll do. You're incredible, Silas whispered. I'm just tired of being afraid. 3 days later, the judge came to Red Mesa. Not to the ranch. Mave refused to give birth in front of strangers, and the judge wasn't fool enough to risk a pregnant woman's life over a property dispute. Instead, they met in the church with half the town watching. Judge Harmon was an old man with shrewd eyes and a reputation for fairness. He listened to Eli's complaint first. The fraud claim, the demand for recompense, the insistence that Mave had misrepresented herself. Then he turned to Mave. Mrs. Danner, do you have anything to say? Mave stood. It took effort with her belly so huge, but she managed. Silas tried to help her, but she waved him off. This was hers to do. Your Honor, my name is Mave Danner. I was born Mave Lark. 3 years ago I contracted scarlet fever. It nearly killed me. When I survived, the doctor examined me and told me I was barren, that the internal scarring meant I'd never conceive. I believed him. So did my mother. So did everyone. She paused, one hand on her belly. My mother sold me to Mr. Danner for $40. Not as a wife, not as property, but as hired help. Someone to work his ranch in exchange for room and board. I accepted because I had no other choice. My mother made it clear I was no longer welcome in her home. And the pregnancy, Judge Harmon asked, came as a shock to both of us. Mave's voice was steady. The doctor was wrong. I wasn't barren. I was just young, still healing. And when Silas offered me safety and kindness and a place to heal my body, responded. The pregnancy wasn't fraud. It was a miracle. One nobody expected. Mr. Barrett claims you lied. Mr. Barrett, Mave said clearly, can claim whatever he wants. But I know the truth. I believed I was barren. I had no reason to lie. What would I gain? A pregnancy that might kill me. A child I can't afford. If I wanted to deceive someone, there are easier ways. Murmurs rippled through the church. Judge Harmon held up a hand for silence. Mr. Barrett, do you have evidence that Mrs. Danner knew she was fertile when she accepted Mr. Danner's offer? Eli sputtered. She's pregnant, isn't she? That's proof enough. That's proof she's pregnant now, not that she knew she could be pregnant then. Judge Harmon's voice was dry. Medicine is not an exact science. Doctors are wrong regularly. And a young woman believing what a doctor told her is not fraud, it's trust. But I brokered the deal, Eli protested. I vouched for her condition. Did Mrs. Lark pay you for your services? Eli hesitated. Well, no, but... Then you weren't acting as a broker. You were acting as a favor. And favors don't come with legal protections. Judge Harmon looked at Mave again. Mrs. Danner, one more question. Did you choose to go with Mr. Silas Danner? Yes, Your Honor. Did he force you? No, sir. He gave me a choice. The first real choice anyone had given me in years. And do you wish to remain with him now? Mave looked at Silas, at the man who'd saved her, who'd married her, who'd loved her when she thought she was unlovable. More than anything, she said softly. Judge Harmon nodded. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, Mr. Barrett, your claim is dismissed. Mrs. Danner was not sold as property. Slavery is illegal in this territory. She accepted employment in good faith, believing herself to be barren because a doctor told her so. The subsequent pregnancy is unexpected, but not fraudulent. And since she and Mr. Danner are now legally married, any further claims on her person are void. He banged his gavel. Case closed. Everyone go home. The church erupted in whispers. Eli turned purple with rage. This is outrageous, I demand. You demand nothing, Judge Harmon interrupted. You're lucky I'm not charging you with harassment. Now leave before I change my mind about that. Eli stormed out. The deputy followed, looking relieved it was over. Judge Harmon approached Mave and Silas. Mrs. Danner, I wish you the best with your delivery. And Mr. Danner, you've got a brave wife. Don't waste her. I won't, Your Honor, Silas said quietly. I promise. The judge left. The church emptied. Mrs. Kowalski hugged Mave on the way out, crying happy tears. When they were finally alone, Mave turned to Silas. We won. You won, Silas corrected. You stood up there 8 months pregnant and told your truth. You won. Mave smiled, tired but genuine. We won together. They rode home as the sun set. Mave was exhausted, her body aching, but her heart felt lighter than it had in months. The weight of Eli's threats, her mother's cruelty, the world's judgment, it all felt distant now. Irrelevant. She was Mave Danner. Wife. Soon-to-be mother. Survivor. And no one could take that away from her. The labor started 2 weeks later, just after dawn. Mave woke to cramping so intense she gasped. Fluid soaked the sheets. She shook Silas awake. It's time, she said. Silas was up in an instant. He dressed in seconds, pulled on his boots, grabbed his rifle out of habit. I'll get Dr. Walsh. You stay here. Don't push. Don't do anything. Just breathe. Silas. I'll be back in an hour. I promise. He kissed her hard. I love you. I love you too. Now go. He was gone in a thunder of hoofbeats. Mave lay back against the pillows, breathing through the contractions. They came every few minutes now. Strong, relentless. The baby had decided it was time, and there was no stopping it. She thought about her mother, about the girl she'd been 3 years ago, sick and scared and certain she was going to die. About the woman she'd become, stronger, braver, loved. She thought about Silas, about the way he looked at her, the way he'd fought for her, the way he'd promised to stand between her and anything that tried to hurt her. And she thought about the baby, the impossible miracle, the life growing inside her that nobody believed could exist. Hold on, she whispered, one hand on her belly. Your father's coming. And we're going to meet you soon. Just hold on. Dr. Walsh arrived in 45 minutes, Silas beside her. The doctor took one look at Mave and immediately started giving orders. Boil water. Get clean towels. Light every lamp you have, I need to see. She washed her hands thoroughly. Mrs. Danner, how far apart are the contractions? 3 minutes, maybe less. You're moving fast. That's good. Means your body knows what to do. Dr. Walsh examined her quickly. You're almost fully dilated. Another hour, maybe 2, and we'll have a baby. The next 2 hours were hell. Mave had never felt pain like this. It came in waves, relentless crushing. She screamed, she cried, she begged for it to stop. Silas held her hand through it all, letting her squeeze until his bones creaked, whispering encouragement, even when she cursed him for doing this to her. I can see the head, Dr. Walsh said finally. Next contraction you push. Hard as you can. Mave pushed. The pain was blinding. She felt something tear, felt blood, felt her body splitting apart. Again, Dr. Walsh commanded. Push! Mave pushed, screamed, pushed again, and then a cry, high and thin and outraged. It's a girl, Dr. Walsh said, her voice warm. A healthy baby girl. Mave collapsed back, sobbing. Silas's hand was still in hers. He was crying too. Dr. Walsh worked quickly, cutting the cord, cleaning the baby, checking her over. 10 fingers, 10 toes, good color, strong lungs. She wrapped the baby in a clean cloth and handed her to Mave. Meet your daughter. Mave looked down at the tiny face, the screwed-up eyes, the mouth open in an indignant wail. She was perfect, impossibly, miraculously perfect. Hello, Mave whispered. Hello, little one. We've been waiting for you. The baby's cries quieted. Her eyes opened, dark blue, unfocused, searching. Silas leaned over, one hand touching the baby's head. She's beautiful. She's ours, Mave said. What will you name her? Dr. Walsh asked as she worked to deliver the afterbirth. Mave looked at Silas. They'd talked about names but never decided. Now looking at this tiny miracle, the answer felt obvious. Hope, Mave said. Her name is Hope. Because that's what she was, what she'd always been. The proof that broken things could heal, that impossible things could happen, that love could bloom even in the hardest soil. Dr. Walsh checked Mave over thoroughly. There was tearing as she'd feared, but not catastrophic. She stitched Mave up, gave her instructions for healing, and promised to check on her in a few days. You did well, Mrs. Danner, the doctor said as she packed her bag. Both of you. Not many women could survive what you've been through and still come out fighting. I had help, Mave said, looking at Silas. The best kind. Dr. Walsh agreed. When the doctor left, Silas climbed into bed beside Mave, carefully, so as not to jostle her. Hope was asleep now, nestled against Mave's chest, breathing soft and steady. We did it, Silas whispered. We did, Mave agreed. They lay there for a long time watching their daughter sleep. The sun climbed higher. The chickens clucked outside. Just dogs scratched at the door wanting in. Life went on, ordinary and precious, and full of small miracles. I need to write my mother, Mave said after a while. Silas stiffened. Why? Because I want her to know. I want her to know that I survived, that I bloomed where she buried me, that I forgive her not because she deserves it, but because I deserve peace. Mave's voice was steady, strong. And I want Hope to know that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength. Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'll get you paper. Mave wrote the letter that afternoon one-handed while she nursed Hope. The words came easily without anger or bitterness. Just truth. Mother, you said I was broken, that the fever destroyed everything worth keeping, that I was a burden, a liability, a mistake the Lord forgot to fix. But I bloomed where you buried me. I found a man who saw worth in me when no one else did. I married him. I carried a child the doctors said was impossible. I gave birth to a daughter, your granddaughter, who is healthy and perfect and loved. You were wrong about me, wrong about everything. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Because I won't carry your cruelty into my daughter's life. Because I choose to believe that people can be more than their worst moments. I don't expect you to respond. I don't expect you to care. But I needed you to know. I survived. I thrived. And I did it without you. Mave Danner. She sealed the letter, asked Silas to mail it the next time he went to Red Mesa. He did without comment. Temperance never wrote back. Mave didn't care. The letter hadn't been for her mother. It had been for her. A final severing of chains she'd carried too long. The days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Hope grew fat and happy, her dark blue eyes turning green like Silas's. She had Mave's dark hair and stubborn chin. She laughed easily, cried rarely, and when Silas held her singing old hymns in his rough voice, she'd stare at him like he was the whole world. "She loves you," Mave said one evening, watching them together. "She loves you too," Silas replied. "You're her whole world." "We're her whole world," Mave corrected. "Together." Spring turned to summer. The ranch thrived. The cattle multiplied. The garden exploded with vegetables. Mrs. Kowalski visited once a month, bringing gifts for Hope and gossip from town. Eli Barrett had left the territory, his reputation in tatters after losing the lawsuit. No one missed him. On Hope's first birthday, Mave and Silas sat on the porch watching their daughter toddle after Just Dog. The sun was setting, painting the mesas gold and red. The air smelled like sage and rain. "You ever regret it?" Silas asked quietly. "Marrying me, staying here." Mave looked at him, at this man who'd saved her, who'd loved her, who'd given her a life she'd never dreamed possible. "Not once," she said, "not even when labor was bad. Not even then." Mave took his hand. "You gave me something I thought I'd never have. A home, a family, a reason to believe I was worth loving." "You always were," Silas said. "You just needed someone to remind you. And you needed someone to remind you that living wasn't the same as surviving." "We saved each other," Silas said. "We did." Hope squealed with laughter as Just Dog licked her face. Mave smiled, watching her daughter, her miracle, her impossible gift play in the dust. She thought about the girl she'd been, the one her mother sold, the one everyone called Barren, the one who'd believed she was better off dead. That girl was gone now, buried under layers of healing and hope and hard-won strength. In her place was a woman, a wife, a mother, a survivor. Someone who'd learned that worth wasn't measured by what you could give, but by what you refused to let the world take from you. Mave Danner had been buried alive by cruelty and doubt, and a world that called her worthless. But she hadn't stayed buried. She'd clawed her way out inch by inch, day by day, until she stood in the sunlight again. And where they buried her love had made her bloom. Not just survive, not just exist, but bloom wild and fierce and unstoppable into something beautiful.